Welcome back to Forbidden Knowledge News. I'm your host, Chris Matthew. Today my guest is Stephen Kelley. First, some very important announcements. For reasons unknown, even though the Forbidden documentary Occult Louisiana was picked up within 2 days by Amazon, they've pulled the film after 2 weeks of being submitted. This is a hard hit to us, and it's only made worse because we can't get any information about why it was pulled. Because we submitted the film through Film Hub, I have to get all the information filtered through them. And all they tell me is that even award-winning films can be pulled if they don't align with Amazon standards. First, I'm doing my best to investigate what's behind this. There is, of course, a suspicion that there has been some kind of intentional targeting, but again, I have no proof or evidence besides the extremely strange nature of this removal. But if anyone can find any information, please email me, forbiddenknowledgenews@gmail.com. We're still hopeful that other streaming platforms will pick up the film, but in the meantime, we can use your help. We're hoping to start production on the next film, but this causes a major delay because we can no longer count on revenue from Amazon coming in. Now, you can help in many ways. Right now, if you make a donation of $20 or more for production of the next film, you get a free PDF of Cory Hughes' book, A Warning from History, as well as a free download of the first film, Occult Louisiana. You can also help by purchasing the film right now from our website, forbiddenknowledge.news. It's only $3. The film is also available on Rokfin with a premium membership. With that membership, you get access to all our premium content and all the premium content from every creator on Rokfin. You can also download our episodes directly through Spreaker or from our website. We now also have a $2 membership that you can join through Spreaker. With that, you get access to our new weekly comedy podcast hosted by myself and Cory Hughes. We will not let any of this derail us from our mission. In fact, I'm more motivated than ever to fulfill this and help bring truth, love, awareness, enlightenment, and entertainment to the world. Today I want to welcome back to the show Steve Kelley. He is a laser electro-optics engineer, a laser pioneer, and inventor who created laser aiming weapons systems for military use. He was contracted through the NSA, CIA, and other government agencies to provide high-precision laser technology through his company SK Industries. After falling out with the CIA and NSA, through his work, he was made aware of the multi-level underground systems of tunnels and bunkers that exist under the Getty Museum in Santa Monica Mountain. He is also an author, scientist, and radio host. Stephen, welcome back. How you doing?
Early Saturday morning. What can I say? Happy to be here. Well, it's a lot going on. So.
Yeah, there is a lot going on, and I'm looking forward to our discussion today. We're going to dive deeper into the dark and depraved world of human trafficking, military abductions, and the hidden realms of evil that lie just beyond our everyday perception. And you became aware of this due to your time contracted with the CIA and NSA through your laser technology company. Now, it's been a while since you've been on, so let's start with a reminder of your background and what led you to this information.
Okay, well, real quick, the laser business, of course, I worked in all through the Reagan years, the build-up, electro-optics, built all kinds of, stuff that went into weapons and systems that, we all saw happening in Desert Storm and all that, shock and awe, that was all that stuff. But, I had my own. I always had a company, but it was always doing different things. Optical. I was making optics, precision optics. I made stuff for the B-1 bomber in my garage, But I mean, let me see. What did I do? But it wasn't until I started working for the NSA is when I started doing the solid state lasers, and it was because solid state lasers were just becoming a thing. And Japan had kind of just invented a solid-state laser, and we developed a driver, electronics to drive that thing. And of course, being an optics person, I could come up with the optical mechanical stuff to make it work. But the point is that that was my first real industrial experience with laser gun sights, because what we were doing for the NSA was laser gun sights, and these things were going on. The guns being used by the Contras fighting against the Sandinistas in the jungles of Nicaragua. Okay, so the lasers work really good in the jungles of Nicaragua. You know, it's real shady. And they put them on rockets and everything. But when we went to war in Iraq or Kuwait the first time, they started using that stuff over there. And right before all that happened, though, they got me involved. They started expanding into all this stuff. This stuff I didn't really talk about in my book or nothing, but they were expanding into all these other things, getting ready for the war. Because that's kind of how these CIA guys, they live off the land. A lot of them live off the land. They just know what's coming, and they know what to invest in and where to make the money, you know, when stuff happens. But they were making drones, stealth boats, you know, body armor, all kinds of crazy stuff. Just whatever. So I was involved in that too. But that was a big falling out. And it turned out, you know, and this is something I should always try to enforce on people, because this is where I really get connected to the whole Trump thing and all that. And that is this Intertel Mafia. When I was working for Oliver North, he was working for Robert Vesco, which we talked about, which was this big mafioso guy. And it's people talk about Jeffrey Epstein, you know, they think he's a big whatever. They don't really realize what he really is. Yes, he is a pedophile. Yes, he did sex slavery. Yes, he did filmed people and extorted them, you know, having sex with minors, things like this. But it was much, much more than that. He was a cog in this big mafia. And of course, Robert Vesco died in, I don't think it was the 80s or early 90s. I can't remember exactly when, but somebody took over his operation when he died. And I can't put my finger on, well, let's just put it this way. Robert Vesco was the CEO of Resorts International. And after him came Donald Trump as CEO of Resorts International. You know, that's the only clue I have. I can't think of anybody else, because he is the big mafia dude. I know a lot of people don't want to hear this crap, you know, but it doesn't really matter. There is no white hats. There's nobody going to save nobody. There's actually people out there today that are telling me that the children under the Getty have been rescued, and this is an old story, and that's been cleared out by Marines or some bullshit. It's insane. You know, it's insane. If even one of these bunkers was exposed, the world would change overnight. You know, none of this crap would be going on. We wouldn't be having chemtrails. We wouldn't be having this far. I mean, the bottom line is it's the government doing this stuff. You know, these bunkers that are under our feet all over the United States and elsewhere, where these sex slaves and everything else are being collected, they were built by the U.S. government. Okay, now if you like it or not, the U.S. government has been taken over. It's been like that since the War of 1812. It's only gotten progressively worse. The end of World War II, of course, was when they made the treaty with the Nazis, not the Germans, but the Nazis. And that, of course, was, you know, right after Project Paperclip. And, you know, when you think that half the country is Nazi and half the country is run by so-called Zionists, it's the same thing. It's the same thing. Yeah. You know, National Socialism is absolutely the same thing as social Zionism. Zionism, replace the word Zionism with nationalism. It's the same thing. Zionism, it's like the word Allah and God. They both mean God. It's just different ways of saying it. You know, so people need to pull their heads out. And right now, I'm seeing so much confusion and distraction. And people, you know, the talking heads are in such disarray right now that they can't even keep their stories straight. You know, we got people like Carrie Cassidy that's right in there now with the flat earthers and the Michael Flynn's and Wano Savins. I mean, come on.
Yeah,
She took a picture of some dude and said that it was Wano Savin, but it was really JFK Jr. in
I
a
saw that.
bodysuit.
I
You see
saw
that?
that.
A
Yes.
bodysuit.
Right.
I mean, come on, woman. I know this woman. I know she's not insane. I know she's not. She's got to be doing this under orders.
Mm-hmm.
You
Yes.
know, she's being told to promote this bullshit,
Yes.
and these people are sucking it up, and it makes. We're trying to be legitimate. We're trying to save children. We're trying to have a serious mission here, and we're competing with people that are talking about flat Earth and Nassara and Jassara and med beds and white hats and.
Well, do you think it's across the board the same for all of these talking heads that appear to be on the more right side, that appear to be speaking against some of the tyranny, but they're just feeding us information that they've been told that is safe to give us? Do you think that's across the board with people like Tucker Carlson, Alex Jones, some of these bigger personalities that have been in these realms for a while?
Well, you know, it's pretty easy to see, but you got to have a kind of a different filter for each one of these people. Obviously, Alex Jones is corrupt. I mean, sure, it's just, you know, they say Satan, half the time Satan is telling the truth. Okay, the rest of the time it's not. So Alex Jones, the rest of these guys, yes, of course, they're telling the truth half the time. Alex, of course, is a good representative of the bad guys because he's actually funded by the enemy, you know. But the thing is that everything the enemy does helps us. A guy like Tucker Carlson, of course, I'm sure that he's a conscientious person. I have a lot of respect for what he's doing right now. The fact that he basically, you know, told Fox to F off. I think he's done a lot of good. But he's kind of like an Elon Musk. You look at him and he's done so much good, and at the same time he's got this wife that does this satanic stuff, and he shows up at a costume party wearing a satanic armor. I mean, come on, dude. You know, it's like I haven't heard Elon Musk praise Jesus. Let me put it that way. You know, but at the same time, you know, he looks like such a good guy, but then here he is firing off ships from NSA bases in you know, Vandenberg Air Force Base, which is connected to the Getty. You know, so how can he not know these things?
It seems like at the highest levels, the right and left are both connected to this same darkness that leads to the top of the pyramid. And there's just division tactics to keep us either extreme right or extreme left. And all these ideologies lead to the same evil. We are supposed to be somewhere in the middle, but they try and keep us as far away from each other as possible.
That's exactly true. It's you know, it's been the eternal strategy. It's a satanic thing, this polarization. We're dealing with it really hard right now, of course, because of the election coming up, and it's really, you know, I of course have to work and constantly come up with strategies for dealing with this. You know, the Biden nonsense. It's almost like the Jews versus the Palestinians kind of thing. They're always going to throw this thing at us. What I've decided, I saw that. What I've decided is that I can't really, as soon as I dive into that, as soon as I've become part of it and address any issue other than the Getty, I find that I'm being used by them and tainted by them. So basically what we're going to do now, and I'm going to share with you here real quick, is I have to, two things. First is I have to make Getty the only thing that's talked about. I have to control the narrative and basically do that. And as far as the talking heads are concerned, I have to use every bit of my authority and reputation, whatever, my knowledge, to make sure that people understand that anything other than Getty is the work of the enemy. Because even though I made a comment on my show the other night when, for instance, when people talk about saving children, which is ultimately our main goal here, is to save the children, because we're trying to use emotion. We're trying to focus on something we should all agree on to get this done. And now what I'm seeing is an effort in the community, the talking heads, us, people like us that are all over Twitter, etc. And they're saying they're being led down the direction of save the children of the world. Now they're making this big, broad thing. That's like saying count the stars,
Yeah.
Save every tree, save every kitty cat. No, this is foolish. This is exactly what the enemy is trying to do. They're trying to delude us and push us all over the world when we can save the entire world and every child in the world by focusing on one single location in Los Angeles. And that's the one thing they don't want us to do. Because if we all focus our intentions and our brains on this one location, it all comes to an end. And it's the ripple effect will be universal. It will be worldwide. And it'll be forever. The enemy won't come back from this. You got to understand that, our history only goes back so far. We've got the Bible, we've got our ancient texts, what have you. We've got, we can only go back so far. But we can trace back pretty clearly to when the enemy went underground and started doing this human sacrifice and everything else. Now, depending on your which book story you want to believe, we're pretty sure there was a deluge, and we're pretty sure that people were alive prior to this deluge flood event, and that those people did some pretty heinous things. I mean, they were bestiality, incest, pedophilia. This was common. This was the thing. And basically, they've been working very hard for a long time to make this a thing again. And this is why they had the deluge the first time, according to certain stories. I mean, if you read the Book of Enoch, there you go, Dead Sea Scrolls. Who reads that, right? But Enoch was a witness to all this stuff. That's why God took Enoch in a human form. Basically, I'm going to keep this guy alive because if anyone says, why the hell did you do that to Earth? He's going to say, well, look, I talked to my friend Enoch here. He's going to tell you all about what was going on down there, and why we had to do this. And so we're not going to get flooded, but we are going to get genocided. But yeah, bottom line, though, is back to the Getty thing is that I have to be rude now. I have to basically look at people like Liz Cronkin or whoever, take your pick, Stu Peters, any one of these talking heads, and basically say, if you don't say Getty, if you don't talk about only Getty and talk about everything else in the reference to Getty, you're part of the enemy. You're part of the effort to make this go away, to take away our momentum. So clearly we have a momentum. We're working very hard on Twitter, and I know that the enemy is trapping themselves because they're seeing the organization that we have and the reach that we have. And even though we are the most censored and disrupted, we're as shadow banned as you can get. And yet we're persistent. And the thing I think that really sets us apart from everybody, of course, is our focus and the fact that we have this one simple thing that we claim is the answer to everything. No one else has that. No, the Getty is the solution. This mission that we have is the solution to everything. And instead of, counting grass or counting stars or counting trees in the forest, we should be taking out that one single thing that's going to end everything else forever. So anything but that is an enemy maneuver. That's how I see it.
Well, I think this is a good segue into the Getty and everything surrounding this location. First of all, how did you really become aware of what was happening at this particular location?
All right. Well, here's the thing about that. You got to understand that this is a long process. Okay. I mean, obviously it's like I'm, 60 something now. It's 2024 almost. I found out about this stuff in the 90s. When it was the CIA stuff, that started back in 85, 85, 86, roughly, something like that. the first time this happened, of course, was a premonition. I mean, that's where it starts. People are like, oh, well, psychic stuff, psychic stuff. When we really knew about it the first time was, yes, it was because it was psychic, but it wasn't me. It wasn't my brother. It was somebody else that we were dealing with who was a stellar performer in that business. Mm-hmm. And the issue really, what really told us it was real, it wasn't what that person said, even though what that person said has not changed for the last 20-something years. Basically, anybody that's gotten involved in this and anybody that has reported back has confirmed everything that was said. So we know basically that this is very accurate. But what really told us that this was true was the reaction, because the day after we had this psychic go do her thing, the next day, the people at the Getty were freaking out. Now, bear in mind, we never said anything. A psychic goes to bed and takes a trip and goes and visits the bunkers and then wakes up in the morning and tells us about it. And next thing you know, we have super secret high-ranking personnel from under the Getty freaking out, saying, they freaked out. They went off. We had a contact there. You see, the whole reason why we had, I figured it out first, of course, but that was just a premonition. But when we got connected to the guy that became the trust fund manager, this guy named Jim, he was a Mason. His dad was a Mason. They turned him into a Templar. He went to Malta, the whole 9 yards. He was recruited. But the thing is that he had a handler, and his handler was one of these guys that hung out in the bunker. He wasn't a surface dweller. He was a caver. We call them cavers, because they live underground. But this guy, his handler, I think his name was Aaron, he freaked out. The morning after this woman went and did this thing, we never told Jim what we did. We never told Aaron. We didn't tell anybody. This was between my brother, me, and this woman. Okay. And the next morning, Aaron goes to Jim, who was, the trust fund manager of the Getty, the guy with the checkbook for the foundation. And he says, you can't have any more connection to these people. These people are the enemy, yada, yada, bullshit. And he told him what happened. And that was like a dead giveaway, because, if he had kept his mouth shut, if the Getty had never responded and acted like nothing had happened, we'd have no proof. But the fact that they actually did respond and basically said, what the hell were you doing in our bunker last night? And from that point on, it wasn't a secret anymore. They talked about it. We talked about it. Okay. They assumed we knew everything. Okay. Now, here's the other thing you have to also understand. When the trust fund manager was being recruited, when he was being turned into this, whatever you want to call it, a caver, he had to go through an indoctrination and a process, and it wasn't an overnight thing. Psychic skills had to be developed. The guy could the guy could break glass with his brain, after so much. That was his little trick. But
wow.
But the point is that I briefed this guy the whole time through my brother. My brother would talk to him. I talked to my brother. My brother would talk to him. Jim didn't even know me. Okay. I was an identical twin. So the Getty thought that my brother was me. They thought my brother was some special guy. Okay. Well, my brother wasn't even he was kind of like a tranny. Okay. He was dressing up like a woman and stuff like that. He was like one of those people from way back. Here's the thing, though. Here's another funny aspect. As my brother got all feminine, I got all masculine. I turned into this Rambo person, and I was all military. I was all about that stuff, and that was when I was very militaristic, okay, and all about the guns and all about the secret weapons and stuff like that. And my plan, of course, was to fight these guys with weapons. They've been looking for the person that's going to basically shut them down. They knew it was coming, and then they wanted to find this person. and they thought it was my brother. Now, once they got a hold of my brother, they started pumping him full of sunshine and what have you. You know, like they do with Masons. They told him he was special. They told him he was going to go to the moon, go to Mars, do all this stuff, you know, caver stuff. And once they met me, we were going out to dinner. I went out to dinner with my brother and this other guy, and Jim was there. And Jim met me for the first time. And that's when he realized that it wasn't my brother, it was me. And, of course, that was a big letdown for my brother. But from day one, he wanted to know what I could do, you know. And here's the thing. These guys knew stuff about me that I didn't know. Okay, they knew my future before I did it. For an example, I made the first 3-beam laser gun sight. That was a big deal. I made that for the military, of course. But they were waiting for it. They asked my brother. They said, hey, what's going on with that multi-beam laser? And my brother's like, huh? Because my brother wasn't into gun sights. He was in entertainment. He did laser for discos and stuff like that, raves. My lasers went on, you know, weapons and things. But I hadn't even invented the thing yet. And when I did invent it, you know, when I did sit there at the drafting table and design the thing for the first time, I had spooks looking over my shoulder. You know, I knew they were there. I could feel them. You know, I had to turn around and look because I felt like there's somebody peering over my shoulder watching me do this stuff. But that's what they do. This is what they do. But anyway, so when I met the guy, he pretty much, well, everything was out. You know, he knew. He basically told me day one at that dinner, he said, we basically have alien technology that allows us to see into the future. Okay, it's Project Looking Glass. That's what they call it. And he said that technology shows them basically what everybody's going to do. But it stopped working at 2012. Okay, it only went up to 2012. Okay. And I'm pretty sure that this was before 2012, this meeting was going on. But it was enough for them to know. And they told me that that I was going to destroy them and conquer them, and that there was nothing they could do to stop it. And they didn't know how I was going to do it. Now, bear in mind, back in those days, I was all about guns. Okay, I thought this was going to go down with secret weapons, and I was working on this thing called the plasma beam, and I figured out it's a big flashlight, and I figured out how to make it dissolve steel. Basically, it was a secret weapon. You know, if you create a plasma and you modulate it at a super high frequency, it produces waves, actual waves. And the waves can be focused the same way you focus a flashlight. And of course, if it's focused really good, it works better. But anyway, this could actually break a crystal. Okay, it's kind of like when you break a glass, you know, with a high pitch. It's the frequency. It's a vibration, the resonance. Anyway, I figured out steel is a crystal. Okay, steel is a crystal. So yeah, you could break us. We're not crystalline, thank God. But a lot of the stuff that we work with is crystalline. Anyway, so I figured, sure, I'll get through that elevator door. I'll do this. I'll do that. The other thing that plasma beam was good for, at least that was one of the things that my job was to turn it into a weapon that would incapacitate people, kind of like in Men in Black, you know, the little flashy thing.
Mm-hmm.
I used to joke with them and call it a flashy thing, but because that's all it was. But they wanted to basically induce an epileptic seizure in everybody with this thing, and I basically came up to the conclusion that only 30% of the population might be susceptible to this. So that wasn't effective as a weapon. But there's different ways you can hypnotize people. You can use light like that, strobe light, to hypnotize people. This is before Princess Diana. That was another. They actually used. I'm pretty sure this is what they used to kill, or to, to take out, to screw up with the driver so he would crash. They flash a. It's like, it's not just a strobe light. It's a little beyond a strobe light, but basically that's what it is. But anyway, so yeah. Now here's the other thing. This is not all he said, she said, blah 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 stuff. You got to understand, it's been going on for so long since I've become public with this mission, which I started back during the Bundy Ranch Lavoy Finicum thing. That's why I started it, so there'd be no more Lavoy Finicums. Victims have come forward. Many victims have come forward. Lots of them. Some of them are working for the enemy, like, well, at least one of them, Allie Carter. Allie Carter is a famous Getty victim, but she says stuff like, oh, Joe Biden was down there. They don't let Joe Biden under the Getty. They don't let Hillary Clinton under the Getty. They'll let Trump down there. They'll let all his buddies. Yeah. You remember how I said the country is divided in half? Well, they're not welcome on this side. Seriously, Hillary Clinton wanted to go under the Getty back when it was first being opened. I think that was, I can't remember exactly what the year was, but this was, I think it was prior to the Clinton presidency, but or I don't know, it might have been the same time. Clinton was kind of like, he was very big in those days with my Getty experiences, but they said no. They told her no. They didn't want to let her down there. They're very proud about telling me that. Anyway, I was talking about these victims. I've had people, like truck drivers go in there and say, yeah, I've seen the big elevator. I know about the big elevator that could take a semi-truck all the way down. Stuff like that. I know people I know a guy, he was a veteran. He's not a veteran, well, he's a soldier, but he looks like a young guy, and him and a group were at a rave, and they got scooped up. They got in one of these situations, said, hey, you want to go to a really special rave, secret party? And it was under the Getty. But the thing is that when they got there, they got in a van. The van took them to the Getty. When they got there, and they started sending the people down the hole, the rabbit hole. When they got to him, they realized, they go, dude, this guy's too old. This is an adult. The rest of them were kids. He's a soldier, It's like, no, we don't want him down there. And his girlfriend was practically through the door. And when they stopped him, and she's like freaking out, they finally, he managed to get her out. He saved her life. He came to me. That guy came to me with that story. I've had guys drilling on the side of the freeway. There's a freeway that runs down close to the 405 freeway right there. There was a guy working he was a, city engineer or whatever, and they were drilling into the side of the hill there, just right off the side of the freeway. And it penetrated into the basement of the Getty. That's just the basement. The basement that's under the Getty is far bigger than what's on top of the hill. That thing on top of the hill is tiny compared to what's underneath it. Now, the basement is 6 floors. Okay, that's just the basement. And like I said, it's much, much bigger than the entire museum complex. It's kind of like right across the street is the University of California, or UCLA. Okay. UCLA is where they harvest the adrenochrome. It's hooked up. It also has six levels of basement underneath it that have tunnels that go under the freeway and connect to the Getty. Now talk about witnesses. I have one woman, and unfortunately they drove her out of town. She's still healthy and good, but they never let you go. They never let you go. But this woman, and if I even talk about her, everybody's going to know who it is. At least people who know, the enemy knows who I'm talking about, was a Mouseketeer. Okay. Disneyland, Mouseketeer. I mean, that's stereotype, right? Now everyone knows Mouseketeers, right? You
Yeah.
know, Britney Spears, all
Yeah.
that crap.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah, MK Ultra. Well, it's real.
Mm.
It's totally real. Every
Mm.
single one of these child stars, every single one, go through this. Every single one. They always have. And they have this hanging over their head forever. And even when they become adults, even a guy like David Bowie, when he died, or whoever, you know, take your pick, Robin Williams, they all have this shit hanging over their head
Hmm.
that they could be taken at any moment. You know,
Right.
that's what. But this woman, okay, Mouseketeer girl, uh, I'm trying not to go into too many details, but she'd been down there many times, having fluids extracted and biological genetic manipulation. You know, they don't just take fluids. The ones that they are going to keep alive, they also screw the DNA, and they're also looking for people. They're looking for DNA. They're collecting DNA. They're doing all sorts of biological genetic experiments down there. But she described so much. She told me about all these different entrances. I mean, we already know that Disneyland has an entrance at Club 33. We already know that Playboy Mansion had a tunnel. Brad Pitt's house had a tunnel. And, you know, Angelina Jolie. I mean, this has been going on forever. It goes back to early Hollywood. Cecil B. DeMille had a tunnel. Charlie Chaplin had a tunnel. W.C. Fields had a tunnel. These houses have been around for a long time. These tunnels and these things down there have been around for a long time. They're constantly building up and expanding. The Getty was just like the cherry on the top, basically. You know.
Now, without getting into too many horrific details, let's go over some of the activities that occur there. I mean, it's pretty obvious that there's sexual abuse and torture and genetic manipulation and experimentation. But what are we really looking at? What goes on under there?
Well, it's really kind of hard not to be horrific. You know, actually,
Yeah.
when I came out with this story and started talking about what this victim had to say, her testimony, a lot of people attacked me and said there's no reason to be that graphic. I disagree, because it's horrible. And I'll tell you, one of the most horrible things that these kids have to go through is the dogs. Vicious dogs that eat children. They're fed. They're fed.
Jesus.
All right, okay, here's one of the things they do. Usually this is always done in a group. Sometimes these groups of children will be huge. Sometimes there are maybe a dozen, 20 children. Sometimes there are hundreds of children that this is going on at one time on a daily basis. And one of the things they do is they take them in this big giant room, this concrete room with a concrete floor, and these floor has eye bolts stuck in it, spaced out so far away, 6 feet apart, whatever. And they will chain these children to these eye bolts, separated from each other. And then they will come in with dogs. Well, you can imagine.
Yeah. They're also, most likely, this is a more widespread phenomena than just occurring in California at the Getty. Do you believe that there are locations like the Getty around the country?
Well, of course, they build one of these bases every 3 months. People talk about, they hear explosions, they think they're blowing up bases, there's a war going on. There's not a war going on. They're expanding. They're expanding like there's no time left. They're putting in the final planks on fucking Noah's Ark. Excuse me. It's like,
no, it's all good.
This is what they consider this Noah's Ark. Okay, that's what they consider this. All this underground stuff is Noah's Ark, and they are the special ones that get to live. And we don't deserve it. I mean, that alone should be enough to make people care, because, well, like I I try to tell people, this is kind of my theory, because when I look out there and I look at what they want to do to kill everybody and do all these unfair things, it's not fair. Uh, sure, people are violent and savage, and they have no desire to correct their actions and become responsible humans and all this stuff. Sure, I get it, and it's you can't coerce these people to make them stop being selfish, make them stop being greedy. It's almost impossible to do without a stick, or because the people have learned to only be manipulated by greed. So in other words, it's very difficult for me to try to say that people deserve to be saved, because for the most part, and I've been working so hard all these years to try to convince people to care about this stuff, and the more I fail at doing that, or the longer it takes to do that, the more I realize that these people just don't deserve it, because I'm not just trying to save these children. I'm trying to save the children that haven't been taken yet. I'm trying to save all of us, because they're trying to kill all of us, and but the thing is, like I said, it's not because you guys deserve to be saved. It's because these guys that want to kill you don't have the right to kill you. Okay, it's not their right to say, that it's your time to die. It's not. I disagree with that. So this is my war against them. Okay, don't think of it as me trying to save you. I'm trying to destroy them. I know who they are. I know where they are. I know how to destroy them. I'm trying to come up with ways to do that, because I need all of you behind me to do this. It's really simple. I get enough of you behind me to do this. We get paradise on earth. But until people pull their heads out and realize that whatever it is that makes them happy isn't the most important thing in the world, this isn't going to end. So, but yeah, it's not about us. It's about them. They need to go away.
Now, with what's happening on a larger scale, if more children are being involved with some of these nefarious agendas, and we know, and it could be going on globally, are some of these being returned to their homes after being programmed, after being subjected to mind control experiments, being returned and having this internal programming done to where in the future they can be activated in some way?
Well, here's the thing. You've got all these kids with their cell phones that watch TV and all that. They don't even need to take you to do that. They've already got you programmed. I mean, greed programs you. The damn public school system programs you. I mean, look at all the kids that swear by climate change and all this stuff. It's like, or, don't question 9/11. Obviously, they've already done that. But as far as the ones that go underground that come out, they're rare. Okay, like I said, Mouseketeers, children that are on TV, ones that have been selected, sure, they come out, but they go in every day, practically. It's they have to go through this torture constantly. The ones that don't come out, wow, it's kind of. Here's the thing, the adrenochrome issue is certainly very, very real. And organ harvesting and blood in general. I mean, we consume a lot of blood. There's blood in concrete. They don't make concrete without blood. All concrete has blood in it. Okay, blood is a key ingredient to concrete. Nobody talks about that. Where do you think all that blood comes from? Obviously, slaughterhouses, cows and pigs and stuff like that, provide blood to the concrete.
Now, let me ask you, why would they include blood in concrete?
Blood basically causes the concrete. It limits the chloride buildup. Essentially, like what breaks concrete makes it was as concrete cures. Concrete cures. Concrete cures chlorides created. The chlorides are like salts will form, and this will help to crack the concrete. So the blood basically reduces that chloride. I believe it's chloride pretty substantially. It's just like Roman concrete, kind of a thing. They do the same thing. Back when they were making concrete to build like cathedrals in France, they'd bring in a couple oxen and they'd slay the oxen. That would provide the blood for the concrete for the day. So now, if you look at who runs concrete in the United States and is the largest concrete producer in the world, that's Carlos Slim. Now, Carlos Slim, of course, is a so-called one of the richest people in the world, but he's actually a front man for Carlos Salinas de Gortari. Everyone gets upset when I say Gortari wrong. He was the former president of Mexico. He's the guy that really has the money. But sure, they use blood, and remember when Arizona had that thing where that guy, the Veterans on Patrol, Louis over there, Veterans on Patrol, they found that old CMEX site where they found signs of human trafficking going on. That was exactly what it was. I mean, sure, he got a little wild with the rape tree and stuff like that, but the point was that was a CMEX site, and CMEX is very much involved in that stuff, and they sent out Craig Sawyer to debunk the whole thing. And immediately after Craig Sawyer debunked it, he flew to the Philippines and got like millions of dollars from CMEX. He had a secret meeting with the secretive CFO of CMEX Philippines. That guy's so secretive, no one even knows what he looks like. But right. Why is Craig Sawyer goes over there and says, "Oh yeah, I'm going to save some children in the Philippines"? What's he doing? He's getting a fucking payoff from one of the biggest mafioso in the world. But of course, Carlos Slim, biggest mafioso, runs all the Mexican drug cartels, all the, all of that. He works for Intertel, which was Robert Vesco, Jeffrey Epstein, and Donald Trump. So it's everything. All these politicians, it used to be not too long ago, around the time of Nixon, just before Nixon, that there were different mafias involved here. Like, for instance, the Democrats were the Italian mafia and the Republicans were the Jewish mafia. There was a separation there. So what ended up happening is they're always at war. So you notice when guys like Giuliani or who's Trump's guy, the guy with the mustache, Durham, whenever they're famous for busting mafia bosses and stuff, it's always Italian mafia. They never go after Jewish mafia. So basically what happened was the Jewish mafia won. They kind of took over. So all the other mafias now work under that. And you've got the Jewish mafia is basically Chabad, which is Ukraine, Kiev, those guys. They're very big in Russia too, but that's what Putin's basically doing. He's not having a war against Ukraine. He's having a war against the mafia. He's not. And here's the thing, Chabad, who are supposed to be Jews, they created the Nazis.
Yeah.
So of course, so many people argue, oh, but Hitler did this, and the Jews did that. It's like, oh my God, people, it's like a yo-yo, or a swing set. It's a swing set. It's all it is. It goes back and forth, So anyway, it's the same damn thing. All right.
Yeah.
Anyway, but
well, let's get into the part that unfortunately a lot of people will check out on, and they don't want to hear this reality that at the very top there are non-humans that are setting forward these agendas and giving their orders down to humanity. Is that right?
Yeah, well, that's when we go all Carrie Cassidy and people go, oh, aliens this, aliens
right,
that.
Right.
All right. It's a pyramid. Okay, It's a pyramid. Or upside down pyramid, right up pyramid, whatever. As you dive deep into it and you're dealing with the humans, ultimately, sure, you get into other stuff. But here's the thing. It's like, okay, like you talk about, this is where most humans really lose it because they don't understand the mechanics of how that stuff works. Even in the Bible's kind of set up with a single mechanic that revolves around earthly reality and makes everything work within this earthly reality. You have to understand that's not how the universe works. And what we consider reality is just one level of many, many levels. And we have a level above us, and there's multiple levels above that. And God, the creator, of course, is at the highest level. So it's pretty easy for entities, things from these other levels, creatures, intelligent creatures, to come down and basically manipulate us and make us think that they're this or that, Yahweh, Jehovah, whatever kind of bullshit like that, and Enki, this and that. So ultimately, yes, just to put it in real simple terms, to answer your question, there's about 8,000 different types of what you would call alien. Of course, that's really not a good word. Entity, a thing, a living thing out there. 8,000 different species. Here on Earth, we are actually, us humans, as we were actually created as hybrids by 3 particular entities, possibly more, but we know for sure that at least 3 were involved because, well, we've got the gray, you've got the reptile, Draco, and you also have the Anunnaki. And all 3 of these entities are very much involved in all of this blood business. The one that we're primarily focused on, at least my mission, Occupy the Getty mission, is focused on, of course, is the Draco, because these reptile type creatures are the most heavily associated with the what we can attribute to so-called demonic stuff, satanic blood worship. The reason why these guys need the blood so much is because this is their nutrition. It's kind of like everything, every level feeds on lower levels. We feed on level 2. When we eat plants and animals, we're basically feeding on level 2. The ones on level 4 feed on level 3. That's us. Okay, we're just food to them. And certainly the ones that are, the Rothschilds and such, the ones that make these deals with the demons, they do that so that they don't get eaten. So the government thinks that they're being benevolent by saving humanity by keeping these guys underground, by making sure that they're fed. But you have to understand that they're not really fed primarily a physical product like actual blood or adrenochrome. They're actually fed a spiritual product, because we live in a physical world and a spiritual world, and every level in this reality and the other realities are all ratios of physical to spiritual. So on the level just above us, it's more spiritual. The higher up you go, it becomes more spiritual until you reach the top, the creator God, which is 100% spiritual, no physical whatsoever. The bottom level, of course, being rocks and inanimate objects, that's 100% physical. No spark of soul there. But so they're actually harvesting Loosh, and Loosh is basically it's a negative human emotional psychic energy. Okay, so we all have this. We generate this energy. We generate a glow. We always generate a glow. Like somebody in love puts out a glow. That's the opposite of Loosh. Somebody full of hate and anger and sorrow and despair and broken heart, they're going to generate something else. That's Loosh. That's negative human emotional psychic energy, whereas love, of course, is positive human emotional psychic energy. We fight these guys by not giving them Loosh. When we go underground, when my little army of Jedi actually fight these guys, we're not wrestling against flesh and blood. We're wrestling against something else. And one of the primary jobs that we have down there is to stop this collection of Loosh. And there's not much that we can, not in the spiritual realm. When we do battle in the spiritual realm, we can't do anything for the victims, this physical victims that are there being held. But what we can do is disrupt the collection of this energy that's being collected from them. It's not just these blood products, adrenochrome. It's also this Loosh that's being collected from them. But you were asking me about these victims. They're like cows. Like, for instance, when they go into these raves, when these young kids go into these raves, it's like a Pinocchio. It's kind of like Lost Boys, the Treasure Island kind of a thing. They go in there and they get anything they want. Food, sex, drugs, whatever. It's all going on everywhere. It's just whatever they could possibly want. It's an orgy of hedonistic whatever. Okay. But what they do is they give them Ormus. You know what Ormus is?
No,
Ormus?
what's this?
Ormus is monoatomic gold. Okay. They give them monoatomic gold. And monoatomic gold, of course, is enhances psychic energy. Okay. But it's also highly addictive. And what they do is they start drugging these people through this process, and they actually get them to where they're practically comatose, and they end up in these, well, like, I don't know what you would call it, but I've heard it described a couple different ways. I mean, from what I've seen in my little astral travels, I see like endless hallways with little doors where these people are on tables with tubes and stuff, having this stuff collected. But other people, actual victims that have been down there, they described as big giant rooms with like dental chairs, and everybody's strapped into these chairs, hooked up to all this stuff. She really described it in great detail. She said that when the children were strapped into these chairs, that they had women that would do this, and these women were all Saudi Arabian. Get that? And they had their, what they wear, the Saudi women, how they wear whatever stuff. And she said that these women had to do all these things. They had to inject all these drugs in the kids and do all this stuff, but they were very gentle and sweet. And, are you okay, dear? This is not going to hurt, dear. We'll be done with this soon, dear. You're going to be fine. You're doing great. This kind of thing. The whole time this is going on, horrible stuff is going on, and these women would do this. But the women that were doing it were also captives. Anybody involved in this stuff could be killed at any moment, including the employees. The fear of death hung over everybody. Any kids, these kids, they didn't take their drugs. If they threw up after getting fed something, if they cried too much, if they were too weak and they didn't want to have to walk the miles that they had to walk to get from point A to point B. There's a lot of walking down there. Trust me. They would kill them. They would either kill them right there, or they would feed them to the dogs, or they'd make a big spectacle for the other kids, And it was always the little ones that would get it first. The ones that couldn't articulate, the ones that kept crying, the ones that weren't strong enough to walk from the entrance to the tunnel all the way to the whatever, because they didn't have trams. Sometimes they'd have to go down hallways, down a bunch of staircases, take an elevator, walk another big long hallway, get to a tram, go somewhere, then get another it was hard. And sometimes the bigger children would have to carry the little children, and sometimes the little children would just couldn't do it, and they would just, kill them.
Oh, man.
But the one victim, basically, this started when she was like 7. Okay. And then it went on until she was 11 or 12, I think it was, is when she kind of graduated. She reached a point where she didn't have to go through this every day. But she had an issue with some of the drugs that they would give her, and it would make her want to throw up. So the woman that was strapping her in a chair and all this told her, says, look, if you throw up, you can't take this drug. They're not just going to kill you, they're going to kill me. So just pretend. Just I won't give it to you, but just pretend, just act like you're under the drug. Because of course the drug would make them all, and then they would do all this Clockwork Orange stuff, this whole, whatever you call that, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Strap the eyes open.
Mm-hmm.
And they would play snuff films for these kids.
Oh, man.
Okay.
Jesus.
People have to understand snuff films are a real big part of this. Really big. Every time they do this, every time they kill one of these kids, they film it. And they use it. They use it not just to beat off and have their little parties. They use it to show these kids, to make them comply. When they're having their stuff sucked out of them, they're watching these big monitors with these kids, kids they know, getting eaten and stuff, and cut up and whatever,
Goodness.
But
Jesus.
I can tell you a little bit more about the Loosh collection process. If you ever been in show business, and this was kind of like show business, because you got to remember that these kids were actors and child stars. So for them, it was a lot like show business. And in show business, they have craft services. You ever been in show business?
No.
Ever heard of that?
No.
Craft services are like caterers. They provide the food. And when you're on set, it doesn't matter where the set is, they'll have a big spread of food. Anything you could imagine. It's kind of like going into a 7-Eleven and a McDonald's and whatever, all in one, right there. They just have a ton of stuff right there, whatever you could imagine, whatever you want. I remember the first time I saw that, it's like, gee, what do I want to eat? I want one of them candy bars. But anyway, she said that like one time, because she was a, McMouseketeer, they did a lot of stuff in LA and the Disneyland theater, and there's a lot of the Amundsen Theater where they do the Oscars and all that stuff. They're, right there in Hollywood. It's a complex of buildings, and they all basically have a big basement that hooks up to this stuff. So kids would go to, say, like their talent agent, or they would go to an audition, or they would go to whatever. They'd go to a rehearsal. Where they were really going was this. Okay, so they collect up all these kids, these, Corey Feldman type kids, and, she was of that class. She was of that era, the Corey Feldman era, and Haim, and those guys, Cory Hughes.
Mm-hmm.
That was that group. Okay, they were all together, basically. They all did this stuff together. But anyway, she said they went down underground from there, down to the Amundsen Theater, and she pretty much remembers they ended up somewhere that she thinks was, under UCLA. You never really know, but she thinks it was under UCLA because it seemed like a very medical place. And that's the first thing they did was they fed them. Okay, they fed the kids. They took them into like a craft services thing where they had all whatever stuff that you could eat. And then, let me see if I got to try to get this right. The process, there's a couple processes. The first process, they take them into one room, and they strap them down. And then this is when they get the drugs. And this is when the torture starts, and they do the, collect the adrenochrome and stuff. And then after that, they go into another room where they're given drugs to counteract the other drugs that they were given to kind of bring them back to life. Okay, there's that's a whole nother area. And they're fluids are put back in. Okay, after they take the fluids out, they put other fluids in, and they do other genetic stuff, and then after that, there's another process where they take them, and now they're not strapped in chairs, but they take them to another cafeteria type of situation, and they only this time, instead of like in the beginning where they pretty much got eat whatever, now they're getting special food. They give them like special nutritious food, because now it's all about trying to rehabilitate them. They just tortured the hell out of them. They did all this nasty stuff to their bodies, and now they're trying to kind of bring them back, do some repair. And so that was the process. And the whole time they did this, what they did to the kids, this was part of that MK Ultra stuff, is they told them that what they were doing was for the benefit of all humanity, and that they were doing tests on the kids. What their torture was actually a test, and that other people would benefit by the results, that they would get from doing these tests. The different drugs that they would create or whatever the hell. So they let these kids, before they let them go, they kind of, part of the program, of course, was to tell them that they were heroes and that they had done a great thing. But if they tell anybody, of course, not only are they going to die, but their parents are going to die, and their pets are going to die, and their friends are going to die, and their teachers are going to die, and on and on and on and on, that kind of a thing. And these are kids that have seen kids die in front of them almost daily. Man. All right, I'll tell you what they did with the dogs. They would take them the kids would be all strapped to the chain to the floor, and then these NSA guys, these NSA bastards, CIA, whatever you want to call them, they used the same dogs that they used to protect the property. Okay, they're trained. They're trained in Yugoslavian. They're not trained in Yugoslavian. They're trained in the Yugoslavian language. Okay, instead of using German, they use Yugoslavian. But they'll walk around these kids with these dogs, and they'll let the dog get up close to these kids and sniff it and get in the kid's face. And then they'll say all kinds of sarcastic stuff like, "Ooh, you like this one? You like this one? You want to eat this one? Is this one sweet enough for you? You want to taste this one? You don't like this one? How about this one over here? You like the smell of this one?" And then they'd let the dog, one of the kids would get eaten. In front of all the others. Jesus. While they're chained to the floor. Big concrete room. That's just one of the things they do. The Getty, they do much, much worse stuff. This is the stuff they do on the upper levels. The stuff they do at the very bottom. It's kind of like that movie Soylent Green. Okay. When the kids come in, they're like in cocoons, kind of, and they're extracting the fluids out of them. They're not even really, they're not active. They're, sure. Oh, well, gosh, there's so many different levels of stuff that they do. Hell, in this, on the very, very bottom, is where they do the most heinous stuff. And that's where they have the real satanic altars and, crap goes on. And this is also where the reptiles come in too. If you go to the very, very bottom of the Getty, you hit rock. Okay, that's it. There's no base under the base. Okay, the main base goes down, over a mile. But if you go to the very, 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 very bottom and keep digging, there's nothing. It's just rock. There's not like an alien base under the Getty. Okay, the aliens aren't really there. And when I say alien, I just mean fourth density Draco reptilian. But they do use portals to travel between the levels. Now, of course, locating portals is a big job of the Jedi. And, it's just like locating nuclear bombs. We go around looking for nuclear bombs. That's one of the things we do. And under the Getty, of course, there's a nuclear bomb, but our job is to find it and make sure it doesn't work. We do that all the time. That's why there's no nuclear bombs going off. I mean, because that's one of our main jobs is doing that. It's a very thankless job. Nobody knows about it, but yeah, we locate nuclear bombs. This is a real thing. They're open about it too.
Yeah, this is absolutely insane. Now, we have a few minutes left. I want to shift gears for the last few minutes that we have and get your insights into this coming year. There's plenty that have speculated this is going to be an extremely important and pivotal year. Some believe that there's going to be an alien revelation or some sort of massive false flag event that involves non-human entities, and that this year is going to be pivotal as to whether we can progress in victory with the right side of things.
All right, I can tell you all kinds of things that are going to happen, current events. I can tell you in the spring that Ukraine is going to fall, and Russia is going to take Kiev and Odessa, and Poland's going to probably take the western part of the country, and Ukraine will no longer exist, and Belarus and Ukraine will all become part of Russia. I can tell you that the dollar is going to fall very, very soon. All sorts of things like that are going to happen. But what's more important is that everybody gets off their ass and gets involved and stop being a spectator and observer and waiting to just, eat popcorn and see what happens, because that's BS. I'm not here to wait and see what happens. I'm here to make it happen. And I'm really personally pissed off that I couldn't end this mission this year. So, I mean, we've still got time, but it's something very big. It's got to happen tomorrow if it's going to happen this year. Otherwise, we got to do it next year. So as far as I'm concerned, as far as the future is concerned, anything that you hear, any issue, any nonsense, any revelation, any big event is just a BS distraction from my mission. Okay, like I said at the beginning of the show, I'm going to get rude, and I'm going to basically say, if you're not talking about the Getty, you're talking about bullshit, and you are the enemy. So if you're not talking about the Getty, that's the only thing that matters. You're working for the enemy. Okay, the big thing that's going to happen next year is we're going to have a groundswell of support. People are going to wake up and they're going to stop talking about this idiot Trump, who will become president. We already know that. By the way, I'm running for president, but it's just like Trump is having issues with the Secretary of State in different states. I also have that issue. You cannot get on the ballot without the Secretary of State's approval. So it doesn't matter what I do. I can't get on the ballot, even though I'm on the Federal Election Commission list for candidates for president, but I can't get on a state ballot. So I don't know. Tell me about states' rights again. Something's not right.
Right.
Anyway, but yeah, the Getty is the only thing that matters. Everything else is BS. That's my mantra for 2024 and beyond.
Right on. Well, Stephen, thank you so much. This is such important information. Before we close out, let the audience know how they can find out more about you, your cause, and get involved.
All right. First of all, you can Google my name, Stephen D. Kelley, KELLEYSTEVEN. My email is law17gun@AOL.com. You got to find me on Telegram at OccupyGetty/Stephen D. Kelley. You're going to find me on Twitter. You got to find me on Twitter because that's where it's at Stephen D. Kelley for President 2024 or Stephen D. Kelley 24. Shouldn't be too hard to find. Just do a search. Also, I got to throw that out there. If you want to help out economically, my PayPal's StephenKelley714@yahoo.com, and you gotta say friend or family, or I'll send it back because we're not a business. And let's see, last but not least, gosh, what did I leave out? I think I got everything. Oh yeah, I have a free book. If you want my book, just send me an email at law17gun@AOL.com or join the group on Telegram. It's there as a file. But we need you, and we don't, even if you don't understand all the details, we still need you on our team, and we need you yesterday.
Excellent. Stephen, thank you so much. We'll definitely talk again soon in the future. And until next time, everyone, have an excellent evening. We'll all talk again tomorrow. We'll see you then.